Africa is not a country. We know that, but does the rest of the world know that? Well, we're going to be having a conversation with some journalists and a media practitioner from Denmark who are in the country, especially on a program tied to this. And joining me in the studio, we have Sophie Stendal Milder. She's a student with the DMJX. We also have Christian Fischer Nielsen. He's a student as well with the DMJX. And then Sophie. So we have two Sophies in the studio. I have to label them Sophie 1 and Sophie 2. Sophie Ritter Skjoldagger, she's editor-in-chief, World's Best News. And of course, we're talking about the Danish School of Media and Journalism. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Did you just find out that Africa was not a country? I'll start with you.
I think I had a feeling that it is not a country, but several countries. So yeah, because World's Best News in Denmark, we write about global development, the SDGs, and the world around Denmark. So we do a lot of reporting on Africa and the African countries.
Is this your first time in Africa?
It is not my first time in Africa, but it is my first time in Ghana.
First time in Ghana.
Yes.
Christian, first time in Ghana?
Yeah, it is. I've been to Africa 2 times before, but it was Kenya and South Africa, so each corner of Africa. But I think a lot of us, of course, know that Africa is not a country, but sometimes we refer to Africa as being the same, but there are so many different countries and language and ethnic groups. So I think it's good for us to create a better understanding of the complex reality here.
Sophie, you are a budding journalist as well in Denmark. What would you say? Is this your first time in Africa?
No, I've been to Tanzania once.
Tanzania,
but I think that we tend to have a lot of stereotypes that we put over all Africa. So yeah, that's why this project is so giving.
When you look at your country, Denmark, and I'll stay with you, Sophie, is this stereotype prevalent? Is it something that needs to be addressed from where you sit?
I would say so, yes, especially, when we spoke to some young people from Ghana yesterday, and it was very clear that they don't like to be put in, they don't like that we talk about Africa as a whole. They would like, to separate West Africa from the East, and that we know that there's a difference between the countries. Yeah.
Okay. So this entire, exchange program, Africa is not a country, is based on this. Why this Journalists of the Future program? Why did you even decide to embark on this journey, Sophie?
Well, I think it's very clear if you look at the Africa and the development that is going on this continent, that it is extremely relevant, even if you live outside of the continent, to have an eye on what's going on here. So many resources, so many young people, so I think Africa is very relevant. Also to Europe, to Denmark, and I think we are becoming more aware of it, but there's still a lot of work to be done. Yeah.
My follow-up question will be, why Ghana? And there are interactions that you're having with Ghanaians here, and they're also telling you our side of the story. What would you say is the choosing of Ghana? Why?
Well, Ghana is a country that has experienced a lot of positive development for decades. So I think it's a good example of development in the African continent. Denmark has a history in Ghana, so there's several reasons for choosing Ghana, and we have felt very welcome here.
Okay, Christian. So it's also a look at positive reporting. It's not always about the negative. There's a coup here. There's that bad thing happening. As a student of journalism, having gone through this process of an exchange, what would you say has changed for you?
I think I've become more aware of the stories that we tell to Danes from the world. It doesn't always have to be when something goes wrong, and it can also be in other continents that we often hear about. something if there's something going wrong, instead of hearing that the health is going much better or the education. And that's also an important story to tell because so much progress has happened in Africa the last centuries. So maybe the old narrative doesn't fit the reality now, so we have to create a new and a better narrative.
Sophie, are you aspiring fully to become a journalist, to practice?
Yes,
You are.
I am. Yeah.
What has your experience been so far, this period that you've been here? And eventually you're heading to Tamale as well to experience that community. And how do you think is going to shape your journalistic practice vis-a-vis reporting about Africa?
Well, I think at our school we learn a lot about being, critical in our journalism, how we have to write about the problems in society. And I think coming here really shows that, as Christian also mentioned, that it's very important that you write the stories that underline the development in countries such as this one, and that you tell stories from places that you might not see when you're in Denmark, because I don't think a lot of Danes know that much about Ghana and what happens here. We hear a lot about Italy and other European countries, but not that much about the African countries, and I think a lot of Danes could learn a lot from the stories that we can tell here. Yeah.
That's an interesting point. Sophie, before I come to the key realities of Africa's diversity, which I'm sure socioeconomic, cultural, that you've picked up, do you think as you carry this mindset, this knowledge back to Denmark, it would filter through? Because it's not just Denmark that needs this. It's the UK, it's all other Western and Eastern European countries. How do you think this can funnel through to other components? Because you also have counterparts you work with in other countries, right?
Yes, we do, and especially in Scandinavian countries. We also have World's Best News, for instance, in Norway, and so we have collaborations and partners. But I think in Denmark, the general issue that we also are focused on in the media today is the term news avoidance. That is a growing problem in Denmark, where people,
news avoidance.
News avoidance, and it's not only in Denmark but also in rest of at least the surveys that I have seen in the rest of Europe, probably also elsewhere. And the issue is that because the media are very good at reporting on all the problems, which of course they should. That's a key task. But it becomes so overwhelming to the viewers and the readers that they eventually just turn off the news. They deliberately do not follow the news anymore because
there's a media fatigue.
Yes, it actually makes them distressed or feel numb. That they cannot do anything about this.
We have some of that here too.
Exactly. And that is an issue because, as you know, if people just turn off the news, I mean, it doesn't make any of us any wiser. So I think the whole point about creating, world's best news in the first place, we have existed for 15 years, is also about bringing those nuances to the debate. So of course we should focus on the problems. You have issues to tackle in Ghana. We have issues to handle in Denmark. That's a key journalist task. But the nuances and the solutions especially are important so that we can, address the issues.
I think I would throw, instead of throwing that to you, I'll throw the diversity, the realities of our diversity. And in fact, I'll start with you, Sophie, this time. What have you noticed? What would you say you're leaving with when it comes to any form of diversity, especially in Ghana, that you've come to a stark realization of?
Okay, well, we've only been here a couple of days, so I think there are much more, things to come, hopefully. But we had, as I mentioned before, conversations with young people from Ghana yesterday, where we spoke about cultural diversities. For example, we spoke about our view on climate change and how we feel, how we involve that in our daily life, and we spoke about the different, how we our responsibility for our own economic situation. In Denmark, the state helps a lot with funding students, and the young people we spoke with yesterday were very surprised about that, and they told us about how they find it difficult to finance their own lifestyle and their school, and I think that was quite surprising. We also spoke about gender roles and how women in Ghana have to fight extra to get a job or to position themselves. And in Denmark we don't have those kind of issues. We are. It's just different. I mean, there are a lot of things that are very.
So that was a bit of a, I don't know whether to call it cultural shock or socioeconomic shock, but these are realities you don't see there that you had to come to terms with here.
Yes.
How about you, Christian?
I actually think, to be honest, what has inspired me the most was when I talked to the young people from Ghana and heard their views.
Okay, so again, let's not put it into the young people where specifically. Do you remember the area?
Yeah, but the coexistence between both Christians and Muslims here, I think it's very inspiring. Because also in Denmark, it sometimes can be difficult to tolerate different cultures. But here it seems like that you have a big tolerance that some are Christians and some are Muslims, and therefore you have different practices, and you respect that. And I think that is just a hopeful story for the world.
I do realize that in your jurisdiction, the mindset may be a bit different, also because of certain things that have happened. But here we've coexisted for a long time, and we want to keep it that way.
Yeah, and it's so inspiring.
We want to keep it that way. But let's also look at, I mean, between now and you have basically led this team, right?
Yes.
What would you say has been achieved by the time you leave Ghana? What would you hope to have achieved before you head back to Denmark?
So I hope that the young Danish students will have a more a nuanced view. I mean, of course, we are only here for a week, and we are only in Ghana, and the whole point is that Africa is a big continent, but at least this is a starting point, and that they have appetite to explore the world and to focus, of course, on the problems, but also on the progress and solutions. So now they have a point to start from, and they have experienced this country. So that is a goal.
Okay. And for you, as individuals, Christiana and Sophie, by the time you leave individually, this may be the collective, mindset, but what would you hope to have achieved before you go back?
I hope that I can portray the world more truthfully and without any negative bias or prejudice, because to portray the world as it is and as close to the reality as possible, it is nice to see it with your own eyes and meet the people that you talk about. And I've had the blessing to do that, and I feel very grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah. You remind me of my interaction with some Spaniards who came into town some time back, and I had to take them to Agbublushi because I speak their language. And they wanted to be on the ground to experience it rather than be told this is what happened. Sophie, what do you hope to leave with?
Well, I agree with Christian on what he's saying, but I also personally hope to have learned a lot about your culture and your everyday life. I think I'm a very good example of a young European girl who don't know that much about Ghana and other countries in West Africa. So I hope to have seen how you live your lives down here, and both see the similarities but also the differences between the way we do things and the way you do things, because I think we can learn a lot from each other in many ways. So yeah.
All right. So that is the Danish School of Media and Journalism. It's all about Africa is not a country. At least one thing you will definitely leave with is the fact that Africa is not a country. There are 50 plus countries here. And all of us are very diverse with our own cultures and different ways of doing things, music and the rest. But before you go, before I take your final words, have you tried Ghanaian food?
Yeah,
Yes.
and it was maybe the most surprising thing for me, actually, because it's so spicy. I think I'm good at spicy food in Denmark, but it's it's a whole another
This
level.
this is hotter than you know.
wow.
Okay.
Yeah,
For
and
you, Sophie?
there's a lot of meat as well. We're not used to that much meat in Denmark. We have a lot of focus on vegetarian food, so it's and
But
it's
it's-
very
So
spicy.
there's a lot of protein,
yeah.
a lot of spice.
Yeah.
You may have tried shito at a point, right? The black pepper thing.
Yeah, and it's spicy.
It is spicy. I like the way
It's
he keeps saying
delicious.
it is spicy.
Yeah.
The
So
main
for you?
takeout. Yeah.
For you?
For if I can handle the spice or yeah.
I mean, what has been your experience with our food?
Well, I agree on the spiciness. You know, coming with apparently a Danish
Palate.
yeah, that's but very tasteful. So I like it, and I think we can get accustomed to the spice level. So at least we're working on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because same happens to us when we also travel to other parts of the world. Then we also have to get accustomed to the food there.
Yeah.
So it's the same reaction.
And it's a nice thing that when you ask someone at a restaurant, is this spicy? And they say, no, it's not spicy at all. And then you're like, I'm dying.
Because for us, it's not spicy.
Yeah.
But for you, it's different. Final words. I'll start with you, Christian, this time. Final words.
Just want to say thank you for your great country and for the possibility to be here and be so welcoming and for your great hospitality. And we look forward to more days also in Tamale to explore more of your country and hopefully come back soon.
All right, Sophie.
Yeah, well, yeah, also your hospitality is overwhelming, and we're just also very happy for the opportunity to come here in the studio and, you know, to share our perspective on the whole project.
All right. So that was Sophie number 2. Sophie number 1.
Yeah, well, I can say definitely, as you can hear from the students, that we are learning, and we are happy to learn and come back a little bit wiser and with more nuances in our bags. Yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. We're also proud of you for, taking the time to come here, learn more about Africa, and carry it back to you, with you to Denmark. Those are members of the Danish School of Media and Journalism. And of course, we had Sophie Ritter Skjoldagger. She is editor-in-chief, World's Best News. We also had Christian Fischer Nielsen, a student at the school, and Sophie Stendal Milder, also a student at the school. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
And of course, as for us, we are very familiar with the fact that Africa is a continent. We'll be right back after the break. Do stay.